Minister, when the school students, the climate strikers, come out on the street in this country and across the world, they shouted and had on the banners of their banners and placards the slogan, "System change, not climate change." They also very loudly shouted about the need for a just transition as being absolutely critical to delivering the radical climate action that we need to stop climate disaster. This bill should be a reflection of the demands and aspirations of those school student climate strikers and the very radical demands that they are making for truly radical climate action to prevent a climate disaster. And I'd like to be able to celebrate it as such, but to be honest, it's not. There are so many compromises and so many get-out clauses in this, it may well be a dead letter. The term "as far as practicable" litters the bill. So that phrase is a constant refrain, "as far as practicable." We will do this, that and the other. But if it's not practical, we won't be doing it. That's the clear implication of the constant use of that phrase in terms of the responsibility of the ministers, the things that they have to take into account. So all the references to climate justice, the one single reference that you were forced to put in, not included in the first draft in terms of the just transition, "as far as practicable." So the just transition is an optional extra. And many of the targets are optional extras, particularly when you look at some of the key assertions made in the bill. On page 7, "For the avoidance of doubt, no remedy or relief by way of damages or compensation is available with respect to or arising out of any failure of whatever kind to comply with any provision of this Act or any obligation or duty created thereunder." There you go. Legal get-out clause on everything, on every single aspect of the bill. With that one paragraph, there's a get-out on everything. And of course, why you need those get-outs becomes apparent when you look at some of the other things that are asserted in it. The need to deliver the best possible value for money consistent with the sustainable management of the public finances. Now, where have we heard that? That is neoliberal, capitalist, austerity lingo. No doubt about it. That's what it's there for. No doubt lobbied heavily for by Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. The sustainable management of the public finances. Where did we hear that? And then we go on. Where have we heard that stuff before? And then we go on. The need to maximise employment, very much in favour of that, but then the attractiveness of the state for investment and the long-term competitiveness of the economy. Okay? So we won't be doing things that might impact on the attractiveness of the state for investment and the long-term competitiveness of the economy. Now, I want to say that when you take those get-out clauses, that's not system change. In fact, that is a legal assertion that we're going to work within the existing system. That the existing system is the absolute framework which we are not going to step outside. And that is not what the school student strikers were saying. They were saying we have to break the shackles of the existing system that have given us the climate crisis, because unless we do it, and of course what we are referring to is the pursuit of profit by the companies that are actually destroying the environment. Because we know, and people need to consider this, we know that 70% of global emissions come from 100 corporations. So if we are not willing to do anything, and we are setting it out in law that might annoy these corporations, that might make us less attractive to these corporations, and that is in the bill. That is a get-out clause, which means we are not going to take the action against the companies that are actually responsible for destroying the environment. That's what it means. If the sustainability of the public finances and that language is in it, well, I suggest to you, Minister, that rules out the radical move towards a greater use of public transport that we need. You see, and, you know, the evidence suggests it, doesn't it? Fares in this country, if we're going to move, you know, if we're going to get radical climate action, get people out of our cars, we need to increase investment in public transport. We need to make it cheaper and more accessible. What's actually happening with public transport? Cash fares have gone up 87% in the last 10 years, since 2011. In 2008, the public service obligation element of public transport funding was 85 million. That was cut every single year until 2015 and is currently, or sorry, in 2019, pre-COVID, 47 million for PSO. Almost half what it was in 2008. And of course, at the same time as we do that, we have announcements that expressway services in places like rural Ireland, Wexford, Waterford, Sligo, Dundalk to be cut. The public transport system, not based on profit, being slashed in favour of private, for-profit transport providers who have no interest in cutting fares, who have every interest in increasing fares in order to increase their profitability. The outsourcing of 10% of Dublin bus routes. Do we honestly think Go Ahead have an interest in providing free public transport or providing more routes which don't make profit for Go Ahead? Of course they don't. That's not what they do. They're out to make money out of people. So they cut the non-profitable routes in favour of the profitable routes. That's how they operate. But of course, having the levels of subsidy that you actually need to invest in routes that may not be, from a narrow commercial point of view or from the point of view of the so-called sustainability of the public finances, is absolutely what you need to do if you want a public transport system that is so state-of-the-art that people wouldn't even dream of getting into their car. That's what you need if you're going to make the radical transition that is necessary. You need to be able to say to the taxi drivers, and I've asked you repeatedly for this, okay, it's not going to be a punishment for you. Many of them this year are facing the possibility of having to exit the industry because they have not got the money to replace their cars, and they most certainly do not have the money to pay €50,000 for a taxi, electric taxi that is disability accessible, and all that's available to them is €20,000. Where are they supposed to get the other 30,000, particularly when they've lost a year and a half's income? They can't do it. They won't be able to do it. They'll be pushed out of the industry. There'll be no just transition for them. That's the reality of these things. Or, let's take forestry as another example. We had a report in October last year that Irish forestry is now actually a net carbon emitter. Not a carbon sink, but is actually a net carbon emitter. How on earth could that be the case? Well, it's explained in the report commissioned by the Department of Agriculture, because we have the completely wrong forestry model that is run for profit. It's about plantations, Sitka spruce and clear felling, and when you operate forestry on that basis, you cut when the market will deliver the profit. Clear felling also releases huge amounts of emissions, destroys the biodiversity which we need to address, and is absolutely critical to address the climate and biodiversity emergency. We need to move to continuous cover forestry. We need to move towards agroforestry on a massive scale, and that, I'm afraid, Minister, means bucking the market. You cannot be hemmed in by the attractiveness to foreign investors, by the so-called narrow sustainability of the public finances, if you want to do those sort of radical things. And of course, we have the carbon tax and the just transition for ordinary people. critically here, we need retrofit. At the moment, we are punishing people, 400,000 people who are in fuel poverty. What are we doing to actually put investment in to give them the just transition so they are not punished by the carbon tax? Well, I'll tell you what we're doing in Dunleary Rathdown. €1 million extra, which will retrofit 41 houses next year. 1% of the housing stock. 1%. That's not radical. And all the rest of the people who are living in fuel poverty, some in council housing, some in other housing, will continue to be punished with the increasing carbon tax because we are not serious about putting the investment in. And that 1% is roughly replicated in terms of the money that's being put into retrofit on a national scale. We're not doing it because you have to break from the neoliberal market model. You have to say it doesn't have to be sustainable in the narrow sense, it has to be sustainable in the actual sense of the just transition and of the system change that we need in order to have climate action. So I am deeply worried that this bill is the appearance of radical action. It is the outward appearance of such action, but actually allowing all the get-out clauses that mean the system doesn't change. The just transition is not delivered. Where's the reporting mechanism for the just transition in that? Binding to make sure it happens. Where's the reporting mechanism? Where are the powers for the Just Transition Commissioner to call people to account if the just transition doesn't happen? They are not there because the investors we're so worried about wouldn't want it. Where are the taxes insistent that we are going to tax the big corporations that continue to pollute and are the real problem? Not there. So I am worried. As I said, this is decorations, the appearance of radical action, when actually it is a balancing act to appease the big polluters and corporate interests.